Welcome to Get Justice with Scott Elliot Smith and Michael Morris. Good morning again, Michael.
Hey, I'm super excited to be here, and I'm excited because you're very fired up today.
We're going to talk about something that's near and dear to my heart. This is Sunday morning, last Tuesday. Did you vote?
I see that you did because you have a sticker on.
That's right.
And I asked you when you walked in, just joking with you, and I could tell you were very proud that you voted today.
I'm not sure proud is the word. You know, in our system of justice, Michael, we have two things as citizens that are inalienable rights. Number one is the right to sit on a jury, to be the peer of our colleagues to decide what is and what is not justice. The second thing is voting. Those two rights should never, ever, in my opinion, be avoided or taken lightly.
Do you think that you've probably seen the statistics, only about 40% of the population will vote today? And also in the last election, I think it was just over 40%. How do you feel about that when you see that number?
Yeah, it's disappointing to me because I know the system, because I studied law and I've been practicing law for 35 years. Tuesday was a cold, rainy day that usually has lower voter turnout. It's not even a midterm election. It's a local election, which brings down the numbers even more. It's unfortunate because if you don't vote, you're giving up one of your key rights as a citizen in this country, this county, this state. It's to me something that's not taken as important as it should.
Do you think that part of it has to do with people being confused? I know we kind of talked about this before we started, but on Facebook I saw there were people that were like this issue 2. When that came up, there were people on Facebook asking other people on Facebook, do you understand this issue? And one of the greatest things I ever learned is if you want to know the wrong answer to something, post something online and you'll get 10 different versions, right? So I didn't understand. I was watching the pro and con of this on television, and I thought, I don't understand which way that commercial was trying to tell me to go. So if I'm confused about it, maybe I sit it out. I don't vote because I don't understand.
Well, one thing you need to do as a voter is get educated, and there's a way to get educated, and that is look, read, talk to someone who does know. For instance, let's just talk about issue 1. Issue 1, I believe, was the price fixing of pharmaceuticals. The other one was Marsy's Law, Victims of Crime. If I've got it mixed up, I apologize. But the one that is most confusing to people is the issue talking about making sure our drug prices are not so high that people could afford them. And who oppose this issue is big pharmaceuticals who have gazillions of dollars. Okay, and they don't want to have a price fixed for the pharmaceuticals because that eats into their profits, and that's understandably so. However, gouging is something completely different. In this particular instance, my understanding of the issue, because it was confusing to me, was that this law would be passed, and this law would effectively put a cap on prices for pharmaceuticals to be equal to what Medicare pays for pharmaceuticals. That sounded fair to me. It would help the people less fortunate, who don't have money, who can't afford the drugs to live. That just seems reasonable in our society. There are some people out there that don't think so. Like, too bad for those people. Go get a job. It's kind of the mantra of people that really don't understand the plight of the poverty level people in our country, in our state, in our city. So a big pharmacy wants to confuse the issue, and they did a great job of doing that, because if people are confused about the issue, more than likely they're going to vote no, and that's what big pharmaceutical companies want.
Well, what's funny about what you just said, people will vote no. If you ask somebody a question and they're unsure, this is just a sociology study. The hardest thing to do is say yes, to agree. It's easier to say no and walk away from it.
That's
so
right.
If I go into vote and I don't understand, I'm going to vote no or abstain. So I really didn't make a choice. I didn't make an educated decision, or I made no choice at all. But that's what I think drives people away from voting. A lot of people say, it doesn't matter, my vote doesn't count.
Well, if you don't vote, you don't count. That's always been my motto, and that's what I was taught growing up.
But you should go in anyway. Even if you think your vote doesn't count, it could make the decision, kind of like when we looked at the election of when George Bush won, and they were counting all the Chads in Florida. That time, every vote actually did matter.
It does.
So that could be the same thing with this issue 1 or issue 2.
So if one person doesn't vote because they don't think they count, and then 100 people don't vote because they don't count, and then 10,000, then 100,000, well, that's 100,000 people that could have changed the way the vote went. So you can't minimize yourself. You can't minimize your own self-importance. Going back to the big pharmacy, for instance, I'm part of the opioid litigation that's going on in this country. I've got a group of lawyers from across the country. We are looking to bring cause of action against big pharmaceutical companies. They're doing a lot of bad things, in my opinion. One of those is demanding more for their drugs than what they have charged to other people. Why should they charge you $1,000 for a particular medication when someone on Medicaid only pays $75? Well, it's because of profit. These are for-profit companies. Getting back to the voting part of it, it is your responsibility, Michael, to find out what the issue is. And there are sources to do it. It's not hard to find. Columbus Dispatch did as they always do, a big review on the pros and cons of voting for each of those issues. They endorse candidates, whether you agree with them or not, but at least you can learn about who they are. And if you're going to vote, you probably should know the issues. You probably should know the candidates, because it makes a difference. When you just do it based on a name, we end up with people on the Supreme Court who are there just because their last name sounds Irish or Italian.
I did see that the last election, it was like, I'm not picking on anybody, but it was O'Shaughnessy, O'Reilly. When you go in there, that's the name that sticks out. If your last name is unfortunately Smith, I would remember that, but I don't know if this person's any good or not. It seems to be who has more yard signs, who has more billboards. I know that name, so they must be good.
Yeah, absolutely. But it doesn't mean anything. A name's a name. That's why these elections, Michael, are going toward people who've got the most money.
Right.
It's all about money. Follow the money, as we've talked about on this show more than once.
That's what this show should be called, is Follow the Money.
Well, it kind of is, because that is the incentive. That's the motivation behind some of these big business and insurance companies' interests. They have so much money. They're so sophisticated. They can confuse an issue, just like they did with the issue on capping the cost of pharmaceuticals. They want to confuse it. And one of the issues they raised was, hey, it's going to make the cost of pharmaceuticals even more expensive. Well, my research doesn't reveal that's true, but that was their push. That was one of the big things.
It was a very hard issue to really, because when you're watching the pro and con ads, again, they are giving you some kind of education, but they are giving you their side of it. So if you have to sit there and decipher it, and then you have to get in and then read what you're voting for. Most people are not lawyers. I know that you've said this before. There are times you're reading through something, you're like, if A equals B equals C, if I'm just a guy that drives a truck, and this is for all those truckers out there, I hope you vote, but if I don't have time, that I haven't educated myself, and I go in there and I'm reading it and I'm confused, I am going to say no. And it could be to my benefit to vote for it.
Yes, exactly right. In fact, that's what they bank on. If they can confuse the issue, most people vote no, and that issue probably, well, I'm not going to say, it's Sunday. You can read the paper, did it pass or didn't it pass? And I'm going to tell you that's the reason.
But who words that?
Well,
the
amendment itself is worded through a collective process, and it's supposed to be accurate. But reading it doesn't necessarily give you the answer you're looking for. It just says, this is what this does. Okay, well, what does that mean? It doesn't tell you what it means. It tells you this is what it does. So that's where your research comes in. Shifting gears, Michael, this election also included city council and electing municipal court judges. Well, near and dear to my heart are judges, because I practice law and I'm in the court system all the time. Well, these judges that are elected this time around are municipal court judges. They are the lower level judges, not less significant judges, but lower level in the sense that they rule on criminal cases of misdemeanors on down and civil cases of a certain monetary amount on down. Cases that are felonies, cases that are murders, cases that involve gun violence or felonies of nature of a more severe acumen would be in common pleas court. Well, there were no common pleas court judges on the ballot this year. And above $15,000 in terms of a civil case, that's common pleas. So that's the bigger court. So this court of municipal court judges are going to rule on OVIs, assaults, domestic violence, and small cases, whether, you know, someone tore down your fence, do something where it's less than $15,000, give or take, and that would be decided in municipal court. Now, do you know who those judges were?
No.
There you go. Now,
I did see a lot of billboards, though. I just don't know. When you're driving by, and again, it's who has the most money, it is, I saw a lot of them, and it just said their name for judge.
that's right.
It doesn't say who endorsed them, why, what their record is. I don't know how long they've been there. It's kind of like a blind item.
Right.
So when you go in to vote, and I vote absentee, so there's no reason that you can't vote just because you don't want to go there or it's raining or whatever. You can get an absentee ballot. You can
Right.
still vote.
I think it's a great way to vote.
I know people like to push the buttons or pull the lever, however it is, but still, if you vote, you might as well get this ballot, and there's no excuse. The issues, though, are confusing. And judges, you have to do your homework. I mean, I know that you do your homework, but you know these people.
That's where I live it, though.
Right.
It's easy for me, so to speak.
One of the coolest things we ever did was when you went on NBC and you gave a breakdown of the judges coming up and why you should vote. You didn't really plug for anybody specifically, but you gave a reason of why it was important to vote for those judges. You can't just take it and say, oh, I know that name.
It's absolutely right, Michael. I mean, what you need to do, or what you should have done, and you did do, was ask me
Right.
who I believe would be a good judge. I will tell you who I think would be fair, who is balanced, who has a good temperament, who has the knowledge, and is not just there because they've got a bunch of money behind them and they're from a certain party and their name sounds good. That's not good. Those aren't good qualifiers for a judge. But that's who gets elected. So when you did ask me on Tuesday, and I did tell you, you were more informed.
Right.
Now,
but I wouldn't have known.
Well, that's right. It doesn't mean that's who you're going to vote for. And I don't expect you to vote for these people. But at least you knew more going into the ballot, into the voting booth than you did before.
Well, I think, again, whether it's the dispatch or whoever it is that puts this information out, it's hard now to find something that is unbiased. Whether it's a local election, national election, there always seems to be some slant of which way someone's going to go. And it's the same thing if I'm talking to you. If I would say, who you're voting for president. Actually, we did have this conversation with Drew and some other people. We were just having wine, hanging out. And the conversation came up. You were very level-headed about it. But the other people at the table were not so happy about it. But it was such a big deal. I think it was also the age group. There was no one at the table, other than myself, I'm 41, that was under the age of 45 years old. You guys lived through the point where this really matters. I think that the lethargic attitude towards voting is, it doesn't matter anymore. But to you guys, it mattered. You weren't at each other's throats, but you were giving background on what you knew, what the law would be, what the economy would be, and that's what I thought was excellent about your discussion.
Well, it behooves us to engage in civil discourse.
Right.
I mean, it's healthy for you and I have different positions. The art of disagreement has dissipated. I mean, I have no problem disagreeing with you, Michael. I don't have to get mad at you because of it, but I will disagree with you, and I want you to tell me your side. Maybe I can be correct. Maybe I can be informed. Maybe I can be educated on something I didn't know.
But that kind of discourse isn't happening. People aren't having those kind of conversations.
We're divisive in this country now.
With social media, I'm seeing more people that are attacking each other over politics. Meanwhile, I want to say, but you didn't care 4 years ago or 8 years. You care now. I just want you to find your argument instead of, you're dumb. I know that's your favorite thing when I say that off the air. You're dumb. But that's what's been happening a lot of people.
I don't say you're dumb.
No, when I say it like that.
You say it, yeah.
When I say it like a caveman. But you're having people attack each other over political views, but yet only 40% of the population will turn out to vote.
Well, that's the thing, Michael. It's voter apathy. It's an unfortunate circumstance that we don't put enough importance on the two inalienable rights that we have to vote and sit on a jury. It just befuddles me to no end why people don't take it more seriously. Because we get what we vote for or what we don't vote for. When you've got some politician who was elected or some issue that passes that you're opposed to, understand, from a group, we get what we wanted. We got Donald Trump as our president because that's what the majority of people wanted, along with the Electoral College. We got that person. Whether you like him or whether you don't like him, that's what we got. Now, if you sat back and said, I didn't vote, shame on you. If you would not have voted for him and you would have voted for his opponent, shame on you. Because that made a difference. And you owe it to yourself. Otherwise, I don't know why so many people complain.
Listen, that's the thing. I think you can complain if you have voted. If you abstain from even going out, you can't complain about anything else.
I tend to agree with you there, Michael. Voting in and of itself is a problem. I mean, it's even rigged to the point where you don't have a good candidate to choose from.
Listen, if you really want to talk about that, we need to take a break, but I would love to talk about that. Can we do that after the break?
Absolutely, let's do that.
Okay, you're listening to Get Justice with Scott Elliot Smith. I want to do that. I want to do that conversation.
Which conversation?
So there's a whole Russia influenced the election, and that Donna Brazile said that. Did you read that in her book?
What?
Hillary Clinton the Clinton Foundation basically funded the Democratic Party.
Yeah, I saw that.
Right. But what I want to talk about is the people that are...
The DNC chair who wrote the book. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
What I want to talk about is the people that are apathetic are saying, I'm staying away. It's no different than wording issue 2 so that I can't understand it. If I think it doesn't matter and you give me enough on both sides where it's garbage, then I'm not going to vote out. I'll bet you voter turnout will be less than 40%. on
this?
Oh, yeah. Because if Russia's involved and then the DNC paid off to push Bernie out, all that kind of stuff, why am I going to vote? You're going to tell the younger generation it doesn't matter. If I tell millennials it doesn't matter, they'll never turn around. People our age still know it matters, right? I'm trying to disenfranchise younger people.
We'll bring it up.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's do this.
Okay.
You want to bring us back? You want me to bring us back?
You bring us back.
Okay.
And what about me? I guess I'm dumb because I didn't vote for Trump or Hillary.
No, but you voted.
But I voted.
Well,
you voted
by not voting, that means you also affected the election.
By not voting for one of the two major candidates.
Exactly.
Because I didn't like either of them.
But see, I respect.
And I would have vomited if I voted for either of them.
But
so
see,
I voted
I
Libertarian.
know people that did. I know people that did.
And the Libertarians now usually get 1%.
Who was the Libertarian?
I can't remember his
candidate?
name. Gary Johnson.
But so you did vote for somebody.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I did. And they usually get 1% of the vote in national elections. This time they got almost 5%. So a lot more people, even my little brother who makes fun of me for voting Libertarian, even he voted Libertarian this last election, which I couldn't believe.
Well, this two-party system we have is broken.
Broken, yes. Broken.
All right, Jimmy, you ready? Bring us back.
Okay, here we go.
Welcome back to Get Justice with Scott Elliot Smith and Michael Morris. Before the break, Michael, you wanted to know about something.
Well, I want to get your take on this. When people say that voting doesn't matter, you kind of started to lead to the follow the money, okay? Follow the money is, I'm looking at every day Trump is connected with a Russian scandal. And now Donna Brazile comes out with that book, who was running the DNC piece of this. And Hillary Clinton was funding the entire Democratic Party. She said it was dead. They had no candidate, basically pushed Bernie out. If I'm a voter, especially a millennial, why do I care if everything's being paid for and it's being exposed, right? How do you get me to engage if it's rigged?
Well, you make an excellent point. I mean, this is what's happening to this country, and I rail on it all the time, Michael. Big business, big insurance, big money's running our country. But we don't have to take it. We don't have to take it. We have to get involved. Too many people aren't involved. It's a good explanation for voter apathy. Let's just go along with the line of we didn't have a good candidate to choose from in our presidential election. Let's just use that as a point of discussion. If we didn't have a good candidate, who do you vote for? If
Right.
you don't like one and you don't like the other, what do?
Right.
Well, you have to change the system. Our two-party system is broken, and it's broken really, really bad. That's why, even within the system of justice we have right now, our government is still broken because you've got a Republican president, you've got a Senate controlled by the Republicans, and the House controlled by the Republicans, and they still can't do anything.
Because it's fractured inside, right? So basically, because the population elected Trump, so then everybody underneath that was saying it was a joke or wasn't going to happen or he insulted them. They won't do anything for the constituents because they don't want to help him, right?
Oh, well, that's part of it.
I mean, that's a piece.
It's now, you made the point, and it's an accurate point. The Republican Party is fractured too. You've got the Tea Party, you've got the establishment Republicans, the anti-establishment Republicans, you've got the far right, you've got the alt-right, you've got the neo-Nazis. You've got so much in the Republican Party going on right now. I don't know why it doesn't implode. And the Democrats aren't far behind. They're not far behind.
They just don't have as
They just
many
don't have power.
names. They don't have as many names or as much power, but they'll figure it out.
They can't seem to figure it out. And they only win because Republicans screw up.
Right.
So, this two-party system isn't working for us, but guess what? It's being controlled by big money. A Supreme Court case came out called Citizens United. And what the Supreme Court of the United States did for all of us, and it's a very poor decision in my opinion, was the floodgates are open. Anybody with a lot of money can give as much money as they want, and they can kind of hide their money in what's called PACs, political action committees.
Super PACs.
So if I'm a gazillionaire and I throw in a PAC $500 million and I say to that PAC, go get these guys elected because that's the position I am. Unfortunately, a lot of these candidates are coming from these little pockets that most people don't even care about, that a majority wouldn't vote for, but a lot of money's put behind them. So now we have people that are far right or far left. Well, that's not helping us. So you have to get educated. We have to take responsibility for being a citizen in this country, or we're going to get trampled on, and we're getting trampled on.
Well, when you look at the money behind the big pharma is a perfect example. When I remember, Trump first took office and Cory Booker was going to make a stand and all these people got behind him and they were going to go after it until the next day, 6 different big pharma companies released how much money that they paid him to help him with his campaign, and all of a sudden it gets quiet. That's not to pick on him. It is who else is going to step up and get exposed for how much money they took. Because it's not just him.
Oh, yes.
Right?
All of them. Politicians have a tough row to hoe. And I say this somewhat facetiously because they want to be reelected, right? And as, say, for instance, someone is not the pro-Second Amendment. I want my guns. I want as many guns as I want. I want to take any kind of gun, assault rifle on down, and not be ever prohibited or limited, okay? That's one person who's going to be supported by the NRA. Now, what about the other person who says maybe there should be limits? We have this Las Vegas shooting, mass murder. We just had another mass murder at a church in Texas. Maybe there should be some limitations about who gets guns. Well, if the NRA hears that, guess what they're going to do?
Oh, they're going to throw their money behind the other candidate.
Well, they're definitely going to, no, they're even going to go worse than that. What they're going to do is go find a candidate. If you're an incumbent and you've been in this office for years, they're going to find a candidate and give them a ton of money to come in and oppose you to get elected. A lot of what we're seeing now, Michael, our congressmen aren't going to run for new terms because they're not following in line with the big insurance, big business, NRA, the special interest groups, because those groups are threatening them that if you don't go with us, we'll find somebody to oppose you in a primary or in a general election, and we'll get you out and get our people in.
I don't remember growing up in this country that being a thing until probably the last 8 to 12 years, where you really had to pay attention to big pharma and insurance, because people think it doesn't just influence elections, it influences policy on the ground floor. Like you see it all the time.
Absolutely.
You're fighting with insurance companies, you're fighting with drug companies. all the time. They have more rights than the person that has been harmed.
Oh, it's amazing to me.
Because corporations are people.
Well, corporations, yeah, corporations are pursuant to the courts are people. You know, unfortunately, that's not so good. You know, if you want to trace this all the way back, there's a thing called gerrymandering, and what we have that in every district across the country, including here, is the ability of the party in power to get all the constituents of that opposing party in one area, and that area can vote for that person, and they just have one person in Congress or the legislature. The rest of the areas, there's 5 or 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, whatever they are all then theirs. So you say, okay, you can have your 1 or 2 little districts, but we get the rest of the districts. So then they control the House, they can control the Senate, these laws get passed, and we're right back to follow the money.
I'm so glad you brought this up today, that we could have this conversation. I feel like we could go in deeper on it, but what I like is we were able to have a discussion, and it wasn't who voted for who, it was the importance of that you have to vote.
Absolutely, Michael.
All right, well, take us out.
Now, let me leave the listeners with one thought, and that is this: don't give up. Whatever you do, don't give up on your rights to be an American citizen, because once you do, then we're in fascism and communism and a dictatorship. You've been listening to Get Justice with Scott Elliot Smith and Michael Morris. Stay tuned. We'll be back next Sunday. That was spirited.
Don't give up. Don't ever give up. In the words of Jim Valvano.